So let's discuss about Java. Okay. So let me start from the very beginning. Okay. Try to understand. So we are trying to understand, or we are trying to learn the Java. Okay. So first of all, what do you mean by Java? See, Java is nothing but it's a programming language. Okay. So what do you mean by programming language and why we need a programming language? Okay. See, suppose let's say, so first of all, we will try to understand what is a language. Okay. So why do we need a language? Okay. So suppose let's say there are two persons are there. Okay. And they wants to communicate with each other. Okay. How they can communicate with each other? So they need some language, right? So without language, they cannot communicate with each other. Communicate means it will, he will say something, and whatever he is saying, based on that only he should have to respond back, right? So then only we can say like they can communicate, they are communicating with each other, right? So in order to communicate with each other, they need some language. By that language they can communicate with each other. So it might be your English language, or it could be Hindi language, okay, or it could be Telugu language, or it could be Tamil, any language. So there are, we are having several languages we are having or not. So why do we need this language? So that we can communicate to other person, right? So similarly, how we are communicate, in order to communicate with each other, how we need a language. Similarly, suppose let's say a person wants to communicate with the system. Okay. Suppose let's say one person, I am trying to communicate with my system. Okay. So then I need some language, right? So whatever I am saying, my system should able to understand, and based on that only it has to send the response back. Okay. So here, in order to communicate with my system, I need some programming language. Okay. So based on that, whatever the programming language I am writing, okay, my system should able to understand those language, and based on that only it has to send me the response back. So that's why we are using some programming language. Okay. Programming language, we will write some program, and we will write some program, and that program will be read by this system. Okay. And whatever the program means set of instruction or set of command. Okay. I am giving some command, based on that, or I am writing some programming, based on that only my system should be able to understand this program, and it has to execute, and it has to send me the response back. So that's why we need some programming language. How we are having different type of languages, right? So that we can communicate with other person, right? Similarly, if I want to communicate with my system, I need some programming language. Okay. So there could be, we are having Java, .NET, Python, C, C++, okay, Golang or Kotlin. There are a lot of programming languages we are having. How we are having different types of languages we are having, right? So that we can communicate with each other. Similarly, in order to communicate with my system, we need several languages. Okay. As we may write the programs based on the Java syntax. Okay. See, English is having some set of rule, right? We need to write, we need to, in order to communicate with each other, we need to follow those principle. Okay. I need to write, suppose let's say I am writing here, I am going to school. Okay. So while I am writing this English statement, okay, so someone is trying to, so while I am writing no one, just recording. Okay, so go.
Really, someone is there?
Okay, see here, while I am writing this sentence, right? Okay, I am going to school. Okay, so while I am writing this sentence, so I am following some principle or not? I am going to school. So I am, the first letter should be capital. Okay, I should be capital. Okay, it should be having the verb and going to school. So I need to follow some principle or some syntax in order to write this English language, right? So I cannot write school, going, I to. I cannot write like, so no one can able to understand. So in, even though we are trying to communicate by using the English language, so I need to follow some principle so that other people can able to understand those things. So that's why we need to follow those rule while speaking English language or while writing the English statement also. Okay, so that's why we need to follow some certain rule. So if in, okay, so if I see this language, okay, so someone is trying to write the English language. Suppose let's say I want to write in the Hindi, so I need to follow the Hindi syntax or Hindi rules, right? In order to write the Hindi language, or you know, if I want to say something in Hindi language, so I need to follow some rule to say this Hindi language, right? So similarly, while I am writing Java language, we need to follow some set of rule or some set of syntax or principle in order to write the Java language, so that my system can able to understand. Okay, while writing the Java program, we need to follow some syntax. Syntax means rule. Okay, syntax or principle, so that my system can able to understand. Okay, see how we are writing here. It should be, the first letter should be capital. Okay, and while we are giving some name, it should be capital. At the end we need to give the full stop, right? So similarly in the Java, we need to follow some syntax, like we need to give the curly braces. Okay, at the end of the statement we need to give the semicolon. So some syntax we need to follow, okay, in order to writing the those programming language. Different, as we are having different programming language, so different programming language will have their own type of syntax. Okay, we need to, so English will have their own syntax, Hindi will have their own syntax, Telugu will have their own syntax. Syntax means rules. Rules, and we need to follow those rules and regulation, like tense. We need to follow the proper tense. Okay, it is a present tense, past tense, future tense. So all those rules we need to follow in order to communicate by using this language. Similarly, if we are trying to use those language, so we need to follow some syntax or rules. Okay, see, so that's why as we are using Java, we are trying to understand Java, so we will focus on the Java as a programming language. Okay, so what we understood, what do you mean by language? We need a language so that we can communicate with each other. Okay, how we are having different types of language to communicate with each other. Similarly, in programming language, what do you mean? Why we are using programming language? So that we can communicate with our system. Okay, so based on the input I am giving to the system, it has to give me the output. Okay, or it has to give me the response back. Okay, so that's why we are using the programming language. Why we need programming language? So that I can communicate with my system. Okay, and how we are having different types of languages are there. Similarly, we are having different types of programming languages we are having. Okay, so this is nothing all about programming language, and Java is nothing but one of the programming language. There could be multiple lot of programming languages we are having in the market. Okay, so let's try to understand the next concept. Okay, so before going for Java, okay, before learning Java, let's focus on three important things. Okay, very important things. Okay, what are those? One is JDK, second one is JRE, and third one is JVM. Okay, before understanding Java, okay, first we need to understand what do you mean by JDK. There are three terminologies are there: JDK, JRE, and JVM. Okay, let's discuss one after another. Okay, so what do you mean by JDK? JDK is nothing but Java Development Kit. Okay, JRE means Java Runtime Environment. Okay, and JVM is nothing but Java Virtual Machine. Okay, so there we need to understand these three terminology. The first one is JDK, JRE and JVM. Okay, so now let's try to understand what do you mean by JDK. Okay, first try to understand. JDK stands for Java Development Kit. Okay, see in Java, whenever we are trying to understand some concept, okay, each question will have the answer itself. Okay, what do you mean by JDK? Let's try to understand what do you mean by JDK, JRE and JVM. JDK stands for Java Development Kit. Okay, let's try to understand what do you mean by JDK. Okay, so suppose let's say I want to play cricket. Okay, so in order to play cricket, so let's say this is my ground. Playground is there where I need to play the cricket. Okay, we want to play cricket, some game. Okay, so now in order to play cricket, what are the components we require? We require bat, we require ball, okay, stumps, helmet, okay, gloves. So all those items we require or not? So without these components, can I play the cricket? No, right? So we need these components in order to play the cricket, right? So now we have all those things. Now we need to take all those things to the ground or not? How we can take to the ground those components? What we need to have? We need to take through one bag or not? We will keep everything. We'll keep everything into one bag and we will take this bag to the playground, right? Then we can play cricket with those components. So that means this bag contains all those components, so that with those components, by using this component, we can play the cricket or not. And what this bag we are calling it as? It is nothing but kit bag, right? So that means it is a kit where all those components we are storing, okay, so that we can play something, right? So that means what do you mean by a kit? Kit means where we can put all those things together. Suppose let's say medicine kit, okay, in one medicine kit, medicine toolbox or kit medicine kit, your bandage will be there, okay, syringe will be there, injection will be there, okay, then cotton will be there, okay, medicines will be there. So all those items will be stored in one kit or not? So kit is nothing but where we are storing all those components, so that we can do something by using those components. Okay, so similarly, what do you mean by JDK? JDK is nothing but Java Development Kit. Okay, so while I am developing the Java application, for developing Java application, I need some software and tools in order to do the development of this Java application. Okay, so those software and components we are storing into one kit called JDK kit. Okay, so what do you mean by JDK? JDK stands for Java Development Kit. What it contains? In order to perform the Java development, okay, if I want to write some, or in order to develop a Java application, we need some tools or softwares. Okay, so those tools and softwares are part of this JDK kit only. Okay, what are the tools and softwares? We'll let you know later. Okay, so what do you mean by Java Development Kit? For developing a Java application, we need some softwares or tools, so that we can by using those software and tools, we can develop the Java application. So those tools and softwares are part of this Kit only. Okay, so that's why the first thing is, so whenever we are trying to perform any Java application, suppose let's say I want to develop a Java application, we need those tools and software or not? By using those tools and softwares only we can develop a Java application. So that's why the very first we need to, so this is nothing but JDK is nothing but one tool or one software kit where all those software and tools are available. Okay, so that's why in our system, let's say this is our laptop. Okay, in our system we need to bring all those tools and software or not, so that we in our system, in our laptop, we can develop the Java application, we can write some Java program. Okay, so that's why in our system we need to install JDK first. Okay, so we need to install the JDK so that all the tools and softwares will be available in our system, and by using those tools and software, once everything is available in our laptop or in our system, then we can write the Java programs. Okay, we can write the Java program, then we can develop some application based on the Java program, because we are having all those tools and softwares. So these tools and softwares are part of this kit only. This kit contains all the tools and softwares. How this is a kit bag, right? How this is a medicine kit, right? Kit is nothing but where we are putting everything together in one single entity. We are putting everything. So that is nothing but kit. Okay. So in Java we are using, we are giving the naming convention as JDK, Java Development Kit. What is the purpose of this Java Development Kit? For developing Java application, whatever the tools and softwares are required, these are part of this kit only. So that's why we need to install this JDK in our system or in our laptop, so that we will have those tools and softwares in our system, available in our system, and we can develop the Java application. Okay, so this is nothing but JDK. Okay, so JDK stands for Java Development Kit. Whatever the tools and softwares are required for developing the Java application, it will be part of this kit. So once we install this JDK, so then all the tools and softwares will be available in our system. Then we can start our development of the Java application. Okay, so the next concept we are going to understand is JRE. Okay, so the next one is JRE. JRE stands for Java Runtime Environment. Okay, so what do you mean by Java Runtime Environment? Let's try to understand. Now we are having all the components. Let's say bat, ball, storms, okay, wickets, sorry, not wicket, globes, okay, all those items we are having now. Okay, in order to play cricket, we are having all those components now. But for playing cricket, where we will play the cricket, we need some environment, right? We cannot play the cricket on top of the road, right? Roof, right? Or we cannot play cricket on the road itself, right? So we need some playground. Okay, so we need to have some playground, or we will have some environment where we can play cricket. Okay, anywhere we cannot play cricket, right? Or we cannot play the game, right? So we need one environment so that where we can play cricket, right? So similarly, once we have installed the JDK, so once we will have installed all the JDK, means all the components are available in my system. Okay, so now what this JRE will do, JRE stands for Java Runtime Environment. What this JRE will do, it will provide you one environment where you can run your Java application. Okay, so Java Runtime Environment means it will provide you an environment through which you can run the Java application itself. Okay, so what do you mean by JRE? JRE stands for Java Runtime Environment. once you have installed the JDK, all those tools and softwares available in your system only. But how you are going to run your application once you have developed the Java application? So you need to have some environment where you can run the Java application, right? So that's why this JRE, it will provide you an environment where you can run the Java application. It will provide you some, okay, so it will provide you some environment where you can run the Java application. So this is nothing but Java runtime environment. Okay, once you have developed the Java application by using those tools and software, now you need to run the Java application, or you need to execute those Java application that you have developed. And who will help us to run this Java application? This JRE. Okay, so this JRE will nothing but it will provide you the environment, okay, where you can run the Java application. So this JRE is nothing but some set of library, okay, which help us to run the Java application. So that's why this JRE stands for Java Runtime Environment. It will provide you an environment so that you can run your Java application. Once you develop the Java application by using those tools and softwares that is present inside the JDK, now you want to execute your program, or you want to run your program. Who will help us to execute? Who will help us? So it will provide you an environment where you can run the Java application. Okay, so this is nothing but JRE. Okay, so these three components is very important to understand the to move on to the Java. Okay. Okay. So the next component that we are going to understand is JVM. Okay. So what do you mean by JVM? JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. Okay, so what do you mean by JVM? JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. Okay, so JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. Okay, so what is the purpose of Java Virtual Machine? Let's try to understand. Okay, see, once we have written the program, okay, now we have written some program here. Okay, whatever, suppose let's say I have written some program. Okay, and which program language we have used? Java as a programming language we have used. Okay, so now once we have written this program, now what we need to do? We need to execute this program or not. Once we have written this program, we need to execute my application. Okay, so that means whatever the programs that we have written, it has to be executed. Executed means someone has to read this program, or someone has to read those instruction or program, and it based on the program that I have written, it has to understand, and it has to give me the output. So that means I am performing some operation or not. So while I am performing some operation, so we need some machine, right? So what is the purpose of machine? What is a machine? Like by using those machine, we can perform some action. Okay, suppose let's say we want to wash our clothes. So that means I want to perform some action or not. I want to perform some operation. So that's why we will use some machine called washing machine. Right? So why we are using this washing machine? So that we can wash our clothes. So that means I want to perform some action. So for that we need some machine. So this machine will help us to perform some action. Right? So similarly, suppose let's say I want to perform the grinding operation. Okay, I want to grind something. Right? I want to perform the ginger garlic, let's say. So what we need? We need a machine, right? Grinder. Okay, so we need some machine called grinder, so that by using this machine only we can perform some operation. We will grind ginger garlic and all, whatever operation I want to perform. Okay, so what is the purpose of machine? By using those machine we can perform some operation. So similarly, once we have written our program, we need some machine. So by using those machine, it will help us to execute, or it will perform some operation or not. So we want to execute our program. So who will execute our program? For that we need some machine. Okay, what is the purpose of machine? It will perform some operation, or it will perform some action. So similarly, while once I have written the program, I need a machine that will help us to execute or to do some operation. Okay, so who will help us to perform this operation? So this is nothing but Java machine. Okay, so what do you mean by this Java virtual machine? It is a machine, this Java, what do you mean by Java virtual machine? It will help us to execute our Java program. Okay, so Java virtual JVM is nothing but it is a machine which will help us to execute the Java application. Okay, once we have written the program, so who will help us to execute our program? JVM. Okay, so what is JVM? JVM again, it is a tools. Okay, so or it is a machine, right? How it came into your system? When you install the JDK. When you install the JDK, as part of the, as JDK contains all the tools and software or not. So those tool, among these all the tools and software, one tool is JVM. This JVM will come into your system. Okay, so what will happen? So once you have written the code, you need to execute the code. Execute means someone has to read your code, understand your code, and it will try to execute your code, and it based on the program that you have written, it has to give the response back. So who will be responsible to give all those things? So this your JVM will help us to execute your program. Okay, so JVM is nothing but Java virtual machine. It is a machine through which we can execute our Java application. Understood? So that is why we are using JVM. Okay, why this is virtual? So what do you mean by virtual? See, it is a virtual machine. Okay, what do you mean by virtual machine? Suppose let's say I will tell you, go to market, bring one calculator. Okay, so that's why you will go to the market, you will bring one calculator or not. So that calculator is nothing but it is a physical device. Yes or no? So if I'll ask you to go to market and bring one calculator, so you will go to market and you will bring one calculator. So that calculator is a physical calculator. You can touch, you can feel those calculator, you can move from here to there. So this is nothing but a physical device, right? Similarly, if I'll tell you, let's say, open a calculator in your system, in your computer. So what will happen? So in your system itself, you will open the calculator, let's say. So this calculator, you cannot touch it, right? It is because it is not a physical device. It is a virtual device, right? Virtual is nothing but something is not exist in real. That is nothing but virtual. So similarly, this is a virtual machine. This calculator that you have opened, it is a virtual machine only. It is a virtual application only. Understood? So virtual, if I am here, so I am the real. Okay, if I will see in the mirror, so that is my virtual image or not. So virtual is nothing but which is not real. Okay, so similarly, so that's why this is a virtual machine. This JVM you are installing in your system, so that on your operating system this virtual machine will be available. So it is a, what do you mean by Java JVM? JVM is nothing but it is a virtual machine through which you can execute your Java application. Okay, so this is nothing but JVM. Okay, so there are three components we need to learn. One thing is JDK, JRE and JVM. So JDK stands for Java Development Kit, JRE stands for Java Runtime Environment, and JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine. What do you mean by JDK? Java Development Kit. In order to develop the Java application, whatever the tools and softwares are required, it will be part of this kit only. So we need to install JDK so that your all the tools and software, it will be available in your system to do the development of the Java application. Once you have all the tools and software, you need to run the Java application or not. So who will provide you the environment so that you can run the Java application there? nothing but JRE. JRE stands for Java Runtime Environment. What it provides? It will provide you some environment, or it will provide you the environment where you can run the Java application. So that is nothing but JRE. And what do you mean by JVM? JVM is nothing but Java Virtual Machine. Okay, so it is a machine, it is a virtual machine through which you can execute your Java application. Whatever the programs that you have written, that will be executed by the JVM only. So inside the JVM, your program will be executed. Okay, so this is the purpose of JVM. Okay, so before moving on to the program and all, we need to have this basic concept first. Then only if you are writing the program, you will be able to relate it. Okay, so now, now we learn JDK. We learn what is programming language and why do we need Java as a programming language, so that we can communicate with our system. Okay, now we understood what do you mean by JDK, JRE and JVM. Okay, now see, try to understand this concept. See, I want to write something. Okay, suppose let's say in my laptop I want to write something. Okay, how will write something? So in order to write something, first of all we need one notepad or not. Okay, we have where we can write something, we can open the notepad or not. So in that notepad file we can write. Suppose let's say I want to write my name. Suppose let's say someone will ask you to write something, okay, in your system. Then what will you do? You will open a notepad. In that notepad you can write anything, whatever you want to write. Okay, so similarly, as we are writing some programming, okay, through Java language. So as we are writing something means, where we will write, it will be, we will open a notepad and we will write our program here. Okay, so whenever we are writing the programs, right, so what we'll do, we'll open a notepad, and in that notepad only we need to write the programs. Okay, see, now once we have written the program, then what will happen? This program should be whatever the program or whatever the things we have written. Okay, so this program has to be executed by whom? By the JVM or not? So who will execute our program, Java program? JVM will help us to execute our Java program. Okay, so once we have written, how my JVM will understand? Like here in this file I have written the Java program only, right? See, once we have written the something in this notepad, okay, so how will tell, like in this file we have written the Java program. So that's why we need to give the file extension, okay, as a .java file. See, suppose let's say I will tell you open a Excel file. Okay, so once you have opened the Excel file, how do you understand this is a Excel file or not? So there should be one. So there should be the extension will be we are using or not, XLS, let's say. Okay, so this is the extension. By seeing this extension we can see like, okay, so this is a Excel file. Similarly, if I give you one PDF file, so what should be the extension? It should be having the extension as .pdf. So that's why people can understand like, okay, so this is a PDF file. Okay, similarly, suppose let's say I will give you one PowerPoint file. How do you understand like this is a PowerPoint file? By seeing the extension or not, .ppt. Okay, or suppose let's say I am giving one image file. By seeing the JPG extension, you will see like, okay, so this is a JPG file or image file. Okay, so how do you understand which type of file it is or what are the contents present inside the file? How do you understand? So by seeing the extension. Okay, so .pdf, .jpg, .ppt, .xls, these are nothing but it defines or it tells you like this is a which type of file. It is a PDF file, or it is a Excel file, or it is a PowerPoint file, or it is a JPG file. Similarly, how do we tell like this is whatever the code that I have written, this is my, in this file I have written Java programs, right? How do you tell like this is a Java file? So that's why we are writing the extension as .java. Whatever the programs that we are going to write, that we will, how we will write? We will first of all we will open a notepad file and we will give the extension as .java only. And every file should have a name or not. Suppose let's say this is my resume, so it will be having resume.pdf or not, or anything, let's say calculation I'm doing, so calculate.excel. So every file should have a name or not. So every file should have a name with extension, okay? Because there could be multiple files or not. How we can distinguish? So we, based on their name only, we can identify, okay, so this is a PDF file and this is which type? Okay, this is my resume. Okay, so every file should have their name and extension. Similarly, whenever we are writing the Java programs, right, we are opening this file. Okay, so every file should have a name. Suppose that I'm giving here test. Okay, so this test denotes it, this test tells us like this is the file name. This .java denotes like it is a which type of file. It is a Java file. Okay, so whenever we are writing the program, we will open a notepad. In that notepad, whatever the contents we want to write, those things we will write here. And what is the extension that we are giving? .java. And what is the file name? It is nothing but test only. Okay, so once we have opened the notepad file, once we have created the file name and given the extension, then we can write all the program. So then when this JVM is trying to execute our program, JVM is nothing but it's a machine, right, which will help us to execute our program. Whatever the programs that we have written here, that will be executed by whom? By the JVM or not? How this JVM will know like this is the Java file? By seeing this extension only. Okay, so this is a Java file. Then I will execute. Okay, so that's why we are giving the file extension as .java only. Okay, so this is nothing but how we are going to write the Java program, okay, or extension how we are going to give here. Okay, see, now the next concept, very important to understand. Now I need to write some program. Okay, so while I am writing some program, so very first what I need to do, I need to open the notepad, then I need to give the name, let's say test.java. Okay, now we are writing the programs here. Okay, so once we have written the program here, where we are writing the program? In the test.java file. Okay, now who will help us to execute our program? So this is our JVM is there. Okay, so this JVM, what do you mean by this JVM? JVM is nothing but it is a machine through which we can execute our Java application. So whatever the programs that we have written here, that will be executed by whom? It will be executed by this JVM only. Okay, so that means it is a machine, okay, which will help us to execute whatever the programs that we have written. Okay, now if you'll see here, in order to write the programs, we need to write something or not. So how do we write something? Which we need to use some letter, right? So we will, let's say for example, we are writing class test. Okay, some programs I am writing, public, static, void, main, something we are writing. So while I am writing this program, which letter we are using? We are using the English letter or not? Okay, so now in order to write the programs, we are using the English letter, right? So, and at the end, this whatever the code that I have written here, that should be executed by whom? By this JVM only. But my JVM, it is present inside the inside my operating system, right? Inside my laptop, inside my system, I've installed, right? So that means my system cannot understand this English letter, right? My system does not know what do you mean by C, L, A, S, S. My system does not know about this English language. This language is something which human can understand. Okay, what this is a class. This is the name. Okay, test. This is so this language can understandable by the human itself. A machine cannot understand this language. Why a machine cannot understand this language? So machine can understand only binary data. Okay, so machine can understand only binary data. Binary data means only in terms of 0 and 1. Okay, machine can understand only in the form of 0 and 1 format. Okay, so apart from this 0 and 1, my system cannot understand anything. But we don't know what is the binary code, right? We cannot write the code, we cannot write all those things by using the binary statement, right? So that's why we are writing as a human understandable language. So that's why we are using the English letter. Okay, but my system cannot understand those English letter. Okay, because my system only knows binary code. Okay, so that's why, so someone has to see, once we have written the code here, so what we need to do, this whatever the code that we have written here, that should be executed by my JVM. Okay, but if we directly give this code to the JVM cannot able to understand, because it is in the human understandable language, or it is in the English letter. My system don't know about the English letter, right? So that's why some translator will be there. Okay, some translator will be there which will translate from human understandable language to the machine understandable language. Machine understandable language means binary code. Okay, so that's why we will use some translator. What it will help us, it will, whatever the programs that we have written in our English letter, right? So that source code, whatever the code that we have written here, or whatever the programs that we have written here, right? So this program will be converted, or it will be translated to a binary code, and it will be placed in one file. Okay, and this code will contains all those binary code representation of my whatever the programs that we have written. Okay, whatever the programs that we have written, this translator will help us to convert into the binary code. Okay, and this binary code now can be able to, this can be able to understandable by this JVM or not. Now why? Because this contents, whatever the contents present inside this file is now understandable by the JVM, because it is already translated. Okay, so someone has to translate, okay, from the source code or whatever the programs that we have written from my programming language to, or my source code to binary code. Who will help us to help us to convert my source code to binary code? So there must be one translator. What that translator we are calling it as? It is nothing but your compiler. Okay, this compiler again, it is a tool which will help us to convert our source code into the binary code. Okay, so what do you mean by compiler? Compiler will help us to translate source code into the binary code, so that this binary code can be able to understandable by the JVM. Okay, now JVM can able to understand this binary code, and it will help us to execute. Okay, so that is the purpose of compiler. Okay, so what is the purpose of compiler? It will convert from source code, or it will translate from source code into the binary code. That is the purpose of compiler. Again, compiler is a tool. Okay, how this compiler came into your system? When you install the JDK, because JDK is nothing but contains all the tools and software. This JVM, compiler, all those things, it is a tools or software. Okay, how it comes to in your system? So it came as part of the JDK installation only. Okay, So once you have installed the JDK, as part of this JDK, this JVM, this compiler, everything came. Okay, so what you need to do, once you have written the program, what you need to do, the very first thing is you need to compile your code. So what will happen by using the compiler? When you compile, so it has to be translated to a binary code. So source code has to be converted into the binary code, and this binary code now that can be able to understandable by the JVM. Suppose let's say here Modi is there, okay, India Prime Minister is there, okay. Now he wants to go to China, okay, to meet to the China Prime Minister. Okay, so now Modi, if he wants to go to the China, so now how they can communicate with each other? Modi, so does like Modi has to know the Chinese language, then he can meet to the Chinese Prime Minister? No, right? So what this Modi has to do? He has to take one translator with him. So what this translator it will do? It will convert the Hindi language to the Chinese language. So and whatever this guy will take, so from Chinese language to the Hindi language. So who will help us to translate? So he has to take some translator. This translator will be responsible to help to communicate between them, right? So similarly, this compiler is nothing but it's a translator. Okay, so that this India Prime Minister, suppose let's say India Prime Minister wants to go to the Japan, so he should not learn the Japanese language, then only should not go, right? So it has to take one translator by using, so that translator it will translate whatever he is saying from Hindi to Japanese language to Hindi language. This translator will help us so that they can communicate with each other happily. Now I want, as a programmer, I want to communicate with my system, but I know this language, this JVM knows binary code. So someone has to be there as a mediator who should be translate from the Java or whatever the program that we or source code to binary code or human understandable language to the machine understandable language. Who will be translate? This compiler. So compiler will help us to translate from source code into the binary code so that this binary code can be understandable by this JVM only. Okay, so now once compiler compiles or translate your code, that has to be placed in one file or not. So this file contains all the binary code. So now what this file is, the extension of the file is nothing but .class file. Okay, whatever the inside this .java file, whatever the class name that we have taken, with each and every with respect to that class, there will be a .class file will be created. Okay, so what is class and all, we'll try to understand later, but as of now try to understand whatever the code that we have written, that has to be converted into the binary code. Okay, now this binary, once this binary code it has been converted, now all those binary code it will be stored in one .class file. So that means we can say this .class file contains all the binary code representation of your programming or source code. Whatever the programs that you have written with respect to your programming, those code or those source code, there will be a binary code has been generated. Okay, and it has been placed in one file called test.class file. Okay, so inside, so this is a .class file, this is a .java file. Inside the .java file we will have our source code. Source code means whatever the code that we have written or whatever the programs that we have written. Okay, that piece of code it will be translated or compiled by the compiler, and the binary code will be generated and it will be stored inside this binary file or .class file. Okay, now what will happen? Okay, so now whatever the code that we have written, the binary code has been generated or not. Now this code has to be executed by whom? By the JVM only. Okay, so now if you'll see here, this .class file, who has to be executed? This JVM will help us to execute our .class file or not. So how it will help us to execute? Suppose let's say, so it is this dot class file, it is not present inside the machine, right? Inside the machine, right? It is outside of this machine only. Okay, it is somewhere in your class path location. Okay, class path location means where all the dot class files are, in which path location your dot class file is there. Okay, so forget about that. So now this dot class file, it is there somewhere in outside of the JVM. Okay, so but who has to execute this dot class file? Your JVM has to execute this dot class file. So what will happen? See, for example, I have one washing machine. Okay, and I want to wash my clothes. So if I will put all my clothes outside of this washing machine, my washing machine can able to wash my clothes? No, right? So whatever the clothes that once I want to wash it, I need to put everything, I need to put into the machine or not, then only it can able to wash or not. So that's why whatever the operation I want to perform by this machine, we need to load all those components or all those things into that machine only, then only it will be able to perform the operation. I want to wash my clothes means I need one washing machine, but I cannot keep those clothes outside the machine, right? If we keep those clothes outside the machine, this machine cannot able to wash it. So it has to be loaded into the washing machine only, then only this washing machine can able to perform. Suppose let's say I have a grinder. Okay, I need to put all those ginger, garlic, everything into the grinder or not, grinder that jar or not, then only it will be able to perform, right? If we keep it outside, it will not grind, right? So similarly, this dot class file has to be executed by this machine. So that's why this class file has to be loaded into the JVM memory or not. Inside the machine, I need to load this dot class file. I need to give this dot class file to the JVM only. So that's once we place this dot class file into the JVM, then only this machine can able to read this dot class file, right? So that's why in order to perform this execution, whatever the program we have written here, this is human understandable language. Now this compiler help us to convert the source code into the binary code. Once this binary code got generated, now it placed inside the dot class file. Now this dot class file, what it has to be done? It has to be loaded into the JVM memory. So once it is loaded into the JVM memory, then only my JVM can able to read those binary code and it will execute. If we place in outside of the JVM, it cannot execute, right? So that's why we need to load this dot class file into the JVM memory, so that my program can able to, or my machine, my JVM can able to execute my program. Okay, so now who will be responsible to load our dot class file? So that's why there is a component is there, what is nothing but class loader. Okay, so what is the purpose of class loader? It will load the dot class file into the JVM memory, so that's then only my JVM can able to execute my program. So what is the purpose of class loader? It will load the dot class file into the JVM memory. So once the dot class file got generated by using the compiler, so now we need to load this dot class file into the JVM. So who will help us to load the dot class file into the JVM memory? Class loader. Okay, so this class loader, it will load the dot class file into the JVM memory, then only this JVM can able to read the binary code and it will help us to execute and it will give me the output. Okay, so that's why that is the purpose of this class loader. There are a lot of internal things that they are present inside the class loader and all, we'll discuss later. Okay, so this is nothing but whole architecture. We need to understand this everything, okay, before going for the program. This all activities we need to perform once we have written the program. See, while writing the program, we need to open a notepad file. We need to give a file name with the extension as .java file. Now once we have written the programs, now what we need to do? We need to compile our code. So now while we are performing the compilation, after compilation, this dot class file will be created, and inside this dot class file all the binary code will be stored. So once the binary code got stored, now by using the class loader, we need to load this .class file into the JVM memory. Then only my JVM can able to execute my this byte code. This byte code can be understandable my JVM. So this JVM will help us to execute my binary code. Okay, thank you.